this is it. The 2019 iPhones are being announced on September the 10th, so next week in just 4 days. So it is time for the final leaks rumors on the iPhone 11 with every single thing you need to know about this year's iPhones. This has actually been the longest running series on the channel, so I really do appreciate those of you who were watching the series from the very start. Yeah, good old days. So now get those snacks ready because you'll need them, and here's everything you need to know about the 2019 iPhones when it comes to the name, the design, the display, camera performance, special features, battery, release date, price, and so much more. To keep your Mac running fast and secure, check out Intego's Premium Bundle X9 that includes a number of very useful tools for your Mac. Use the link below to get a 60% discount. Okay, so starting off with the naming scheme, Apple hasn't actually had a consistent naming scheme since, well, the iPhone 7. And that's because they called the iPhone 7s the iPhone 8, and then they called the iPhone 8 the iPhone X, which is a Roman numeral, and it's pronounced the iPhone 10. Then that was followed by the iPhone XS, but we also got that weird iPhone XR, which Apple still hasn't explained what the R stands for. And then also with the XS, Apple has replaced the Plus naming scheme to Max. So if you thought that the naming scheme from the past 2 years was really messed up, you wait until you see this year's naming scheme. So this year we'll have the iPhone 11 for the R model, then the iPhone 11 Pro for the regular model, and then the iPhone 11 Pro Max, not a typo, for the 6.5-inch model. So yeah, really Apple, iPhone 11 Pro Max, come on. Now, these might, and I'm hoping that they will change and Apple won't have this awful naming scheme next week at the event, but up until this point, this is what seems to be the naming scheme for the 2019 iPhones. This is, by the way, coming from multiple sources, the AllXR case leaks as well as ESR case leaks, both of which had this naming scheme, and then the Twitter user CoinX, who's actually had a pretty good track record in the past, he also claims that the naming scheme for this year's iPhones will indeed include the Pro namings. Now, usually when Apple has included the Pro in the naming scheme in their products, they've also bumped the price considerably. So they've done that with the iPad Pro, the iMac Pro, and even the MacBook Pro. So I'm hoping that the Pro naming scheme isn't just another excuse for Apple to bump the prices again even more, when, you know, in reality they should be lowered substantially this year. More about that in the price section of this video. Now, moving on to the design, unfortunately this year's iPhones would not have a different design from the 2018 iPhone XS or even the 2017 iPhone X, at least not from the front. So it seems like Apple has now moved to a 3-year design cycle rather than 2 years like we had before. However, the iPhone 6, the iPhone 6s, the 7, and the 8 all had the exact same design from the front, which was a 4-year design cycle. However, the iPhone X actually launched alongside the iPhone 8, which did indeed include a brand new design. So yes, from the front, all of these 3 new iPhones, they look identical to the 2018 iPhone XR, the XS, and the XS Max. However, the dimensions are slightly changing this year. The iPhone XR measured in 150.9mm by 75.7 by 8.3mm, while the iPhone 11, the replacement for the XR, would actually measure in at 150.9 by 76.1 by 7.8mm. So yeah, it's pretty good to see that the iPhone XR is getting a bit thinner with the 2019 iteration. Then the iPhone XS, for example, measures in at 143.6 by 70.9 by 7.7mm thick, while the iPhone 11 Pro, the equivalent to the iPhone XS in 2019, would be 143.9 by 71.4 by 7.8mm, so slightly wider and also thicker than the iPhone XS. And then the XS Max measures in at 157.5 by 77.4 by 7.7mm, while the new iPhone 11 Pro Max, I can't believe I'm saying that, would measure in at 157.6 by 77.5 by 8.1mm. So unfortunately, the Max will actually be getting thicker in 2019. Now, when it comes to the actual design, like I said before, the design from the front will remain the same. However, the design on the back, this is where we'll finally see a change. And there are quite a few of them here. So first up, the camera module is now a dual lens camera module on the iPhone XR successor from the single lens module that we had on the XR, while the other 2 iPhones will now be getting a triple lens camera module up from 2. And I'll cover everything you need to know about a camera in the camera section, so definitely stay tuned for that. Also, the inside of the camera module will now actually match the color of your iPhone rather than being entirely black. I do think that this is overall a good choice, especially considering how big that camera module is. However, take a look at how horrible the iPhone XR successor looks like. Apple decided to have the exact same camera module size even on the 6.1-inch iPhone, and this does result in, you know, a lot of empty unused space on the module itself. So yes, it is not the best design that Apple has made. I do think it's quite ugly, and, you know, I thought the same actually about the iPhone 7 Plus when it launched on the back, and I did end up, you know, getting that and getting used to it. So I think it's overall it's just a matter of getting used to a brand new design. Also, we have seen some reports that Apple will actually remove the iPhone branding name from the back entirely, leaving nothing else other than the Apple logo, which will itself be apparently moved towards the middle of the phone. So we've seen some iPhone case leaks, not fully sure how legit they are, but they do look very, very similar to the actual cases that Apple usually sells for the iPhones, and they also have the naming scheme that I was talking about before. So iPhone 11, iPhone 11 Pro, and then iPhone 11 Pro Max. And yes, having the logo in the middle looks completely off, but yeah, I do think that this is a very likely choice that Apple would indeed be making, considering how massive that camera module really is now. And speaking of the logo that Apple has on their September the 10th event invite is actually made out of 5 different colors, which are very likely to be the exact colors that we'll see on the iPhone 11, so the iPhone XR's successor. Okay, so next up we have the display. And a lot of the leaks have said that the display will actually remain the same as in 2018 and 2017, however, there will actually be a few differences. So the size is indeed the same as last year, so 6.1 inch on the iPhone 11, 5.8 inch on the iPhone 11 Pro, and then 6.5 inch on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. The iPhone 11 will have an LCD panel, while the iPhone 11 Pros, they will both have an OLED display. And then the resolution will also remain the same, so 1792 by 828 pixels on the iPhone 11, so yes, a sub 1080p display on a 2019 flagship. That is true. Then 2436 by 1125 on the iPhone 11 Pro, and 2688 by 1242 on the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So what is changing are 2 things. The first one being 3D Touch, because yes, 3D Touch is actually going away from these new iPhones. We've seen this absence on the iPhone XR last year, and this has now been confirmed to be removed entirely on every single 2019 iPhone. Okay, so what this means is that a display will no longer be able to feel pressure, and in turn, the right click, so to say, so the secondary tap would work in a completely different way. So you will now have to hold on an icon, and after a certain amount of time, the vibration motor would give you a haptic feedback rather than you having to press harder on the icon. Now, personally, I don't really mind because I almost never used 3D Touch in the first place. However, haptic touch, which is what we have on the iPhone XR at the moment, and this is what the 2019 iPhones will also have, is noticeably worse than 3D Touch. So yeah, if you do use 3D Touch on a daily basis, then you will actually notice a downgrade with this. And then the second display change that we are getting is a brand new display technology. So the panel would still be one that's manufactured by Samsung, but it will be the same new generation of displays that Samsung uses in the Galaxy S10 and the Note 10. So what this actually means is that it will be brighter, so up to 1250 nits, and it will also be able to display HDR10 plus content rather than just HDR10 and Dolby Vision like we had before. But I mean, that's it. Aside from this, there is no other display improvements, so no 120Hz refresh rate panel or even 90Hz like we have on the OnePlus 7 Pro. So yeah, personally, I'm pretty disappointed so far, especially when you consider that massive notch that Apple will still have on this phone compared to the single camera module cutout that Samsung has on their 2019 phones, or even nothing at all like the OnePlus 7 Pro has. Okay, moving on to the camera, this is where the main changes will actually be. So like I said before, on the back, we are getting a third camera module on the iPhone Pros, and this will finally be a wide-angle lens. Now, this isn't really anything new. We've had this on the LG G5 back in 2016, so 3 years ago. However, only in late 2018 and 2019 did smartphone manufacturers really start adopting wide-angle lenses. The Galaxy S10 Plus has it, the Note 10 has it, the OnePlus 7 Pro has it, the Pixel 3 has it on the front, and a lot of mid-range to even low-end smartphones today. And now we finally have it on the iPhone 11 Pros. So what this means is that you'll be able to capture significantly more in the scene than what you would normally be able to capture with just the main lens. And personally, I do think that a wide-angle lens is so much more important than a telephoto lens, just because you can indeed zoom digitally, and on phones such as the Pixel 3, for example, Google actually uses machine learning to simulate the telephoto lens, and the result is actually very, very similar to an actual telephoto photo. However, a wide-angle lens cannot be simulated through software. Also, we've seen some reports that the iPhone Pros will have a feature called Smart Frame, where the iPhones will actually take multiple photos using those multiple modules, even when you're only using the regular lens. So this means that you'll be able to make your image wide angle in post and even put the people back that got accidentally removed from the shot. So yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. And then a lengthy report by Bloomberg claims that the new iPhone Pros will be able to take some very high resolution photos, rivaling some traditional cameras, and then low light photography will finally be getting an improvement as well. And that's because, as some of you might be aware, iPhones are currently the worst flagships in low light. And this isn't necessarily because of the hardware, instead it is actually because of the software. That's the one to blame. So Apple still doesn't have a night mode that pretty much everyone uses right now, from Google to Samsung to OnePlus to Huawei and lots of mid-range phones as well. In fact, phones such as the Google Pixel 3a, which actually cost a third of what the iPhone XS Max costs, or even less than that, is significantly better in low light than the iPhone is. Also, Bloomberg does claim that the new iPhones will have significantly upgraded video recording capabilities, getting them closer to professional video cameras. They haven't really decided why this would be, but my guess is improved low light capabilities for video as well as 10-bit video recording support. Now, Bloomberg does mention that Apple has been working on a feature that allows you to retouch and essentially apply effects and filters to the video as it's being recorded live, rather than, before or after. Now, the iPhone XR successor, so the iPhone 11, will have a regular and a zoom module, so the wide-angle module would actually be restricted to the iPhone 11 Pros. And now, when it comes to the front camera, all three iPhones are expected to come with a 12-megapixel front-facing camera, up from 7 megapixels that we have now. And this should also allow for 4K video recording on the front, just like the S10 Plus and the Note 10 Plus. But yeah, don't get your hopes too high, because Apple might not enable this. If you take a look at the iPhone XS, for example, they have a 7 megapixel resolution camera on the front, which technically does support Quad HD resolution recording, but Apple has not enabled that for whatever reason. Also, I really do hope that Apple makes the front camera a bit wider, since on the XS it is quite a bit zoomed in, and it's pretty much impossible to get multiple people in the same shot. But overall, it seems like this year's iPhones will indeed have a pretty big camera update in every single way, and I'm extremely happy to hear that, especially since the iPhone XS still has the best dynamic range on a smartphone. So yeah, if you're into raw photography, the iPhone XS is currently the best choice, and the iPhone 11 will be a noticeable upgrade over the XS in this regard. Moving on to the performance, this year's iPhone will feature the Apple A13 processor. Now, this will still be manufactured by TSMC, and it will still be made on a 7nm process and not a 5nm one, as TSMC just isn't ready to switch to 5nm. However, this will be a tweaked and improved 7nm process, a 7nm plus process, so to say. Now, in terms of the actual performance numbers, we haven't really had any leaked benchmarks as of yet, but do expect a similar level of CPU performance from the Apple A13 chip as we have right now in the Apple A12X, which is the processor inside the 2018 iPad Pro. So comparing the A12X to the A12, which was in the 2018 iPhones, in Geekbench 4, the A12X gets 5,011 points for the single-core performance and 17,878 for the multi-core, compared to 4,799 single-core and 11,219 multi-core for the iPhone XS Max. So yeah, a pretty noticeable difference in CPU performance between the two. And Bloomberg does say in the report that the Apple A13 chip will have a new component called AMX, or Matrix coprocessor, that would handle some of the math-heavy tasks so that the main chip doesn't have to. So this will, in the end, improve AR, so there we go. This is another hint that Apple is very interested in AR. Now, RAM-wise, the iPhone XSs, they come with 4GB of RAM, while the iPhone XR comes with 3GB of RAM. The iPhone 11R, or the iPhone 11, will come with 4GB of RAM rather than 3, according to Ming-Chi Kuo. However, the iPhone 11 Pros are set to still come with 4GB of RAM. I really do hope that they do get upgraded to 6GB of RAM, since personally I have had issues with RAM management on my iPhone XS Max in the past, and ironically, this is something that I haven't had on my S10 Plus or the Note 10 Plus. And finally, when it comes to the performance and the specs, the logic board will also be getting a redesign to accommodate the larger battery, which I'll talk about shortly. Okay, so far we are getting the exact same design, a brighter display, an improved camera, so what about, any special features that make this iPhone a bit more exciting? Well, luckily there is quite a lot of them. First up, the haptic engine will be getting an improvement, so a pretty detailed report coming from 95Mac claims that Apple will be upgrading the haptic engine with a brand new generation that's codenamed Leap Haptics. Now, we don't really know anything else aside from the name of this, but it's quite safe to assume that a haptic engine will be stronger and possibly even with some more levels of haptic feedback than what we have now on the iPhone XS Max. The iPhone XS already has the best haptic engine on a smartphone. However, some Android phones like the Pixel 3, the S10 Plus, the Note 10 Plus, the OnePlus 7 Pro, they're already getting really close. So it seems like Apple wants to be widening that gap once more. Now, aside from this, another big new feature will be reverse wireless charging. So just like on the S10, the Note 10, and the Huawei Mate 20 Pro and P30 Pro, you'll be able to charge another wireless charging device from the back of your iPhone. What this means is that if you have the second generation AirPods with that wireless charging case, you'll be able to charge them directly from the back of your iPhone. Yeah, really cool stuff. And speaking of charging, unfortunately, we are still not getting USB Type-C on the 2019 iPhones, which is extremely disappointing, considering that, even the iPad Pros, they got USB-C in late 2018, meaning that the iPhone is still the only modern smartphone that is incompatible with Apple's own laptops. Yes, if you have a modern Android phone, you can actually connect it directly to your MacBook, but if you have an iPhone, you'll need an adapter. Quite ironic. However, we will finally be getting USB Type-C to Lightning charger in the box, which will indeed support fast charging. So Makoto did report that this will be an 18-watt charger, which will be a pretty significant upgrade from the 5-watt charger that we currently have now. So up until now, if you wanted fast charging on your iPhone, you had to buy a charger yourself, alongside a USB Type-C to Lightning cable. And then Bloomberg also said in the recent report that water resistance will be improved, so that now you can submerge your iPhone for longer than 30 minutes. And then they also said that the 2019 iPhones will feature a new shatter-resistant glass. But personally, I really don't buy into that. Apple already says on their website that the iPhone XS says they have the world's most durable glass in a smartphone, yet mine actually cracked when it fell from my couch. Yes, 30 centimeters on a wooden floor. Also, we might be getting a really unique feature and an unexpected one, Apple Pencil support. Yes, Apple Pencil support on the iPhone 11 Pro and the iPhone 11 Pro Max. So this was actually something that we've seen in some All-XR case leaks, but it is also something that we've seen reported in the past by multiple sources. Also, the Apple Pencil would not be the same one as on the iPad Pros. Instead, it will be a smaller variant that you'll be able to buy just for your iPhone. And it also seems to be made out of some sort of metal from the All-XR cases leaks, and it also comes in 3 colors, so silver, space gray, and gold in order to match the color of your iPhone. So this would actually be very similar to the S Pen in the Galaxy Note. However, considering that a pencil would not go inside your iPhone or even at least magnetically attached to the side of it, like it does on the iPad Pro, it would be quite a cumbersome thing to carry around, and personally I wouldn't really be using it myself. Aside from this, we are getting Wi-Fi 802.11ax or Wi-Fi 6 on the iPhones, which is a pretty big upgrade, especially if you have a Wi-Fi 6 enabled router, because Wi-Fi 6 can actually give you actual speeds of 9.6 gigabits per second up to that, versus 3.5 gigabytes per second, which is what 802.11ac or Wi-Fi 5 can currently do. Then another new feature would be improved Face ID camera for not just a faster unlock, but also a wider lens on the actual Face ID sensor so that it can actually unlock your iPhone even when it's just sitting flat on the table. So that's all cool, but I don't know, I think this is one of those things that should have been done with the first iPhone X, with the first generation Face ID, because adding a wide angle lens to the Face ID camera, that's basic stuff that Apple should have easily been able to add in 2017 with the iPhone X. Moving on to the battery, according to DigiTimes Taiwan, this is set to be increased to 3110 mAh on the iPhone 11 from 2942 on the iPhone XR. Then 3190 mAh on the iPhone 11 Pro from 2658 mAh on the iPhone XS, and finally 3500 mAh on the iPhone 11 Pro Max from 3174 mAh on the iPhone XS Max. So we are getting a pretty substantial increase in battery size, which is very likely the reason for the increase in thickness. Moving on to the release date, the Apple event would be on Tuesday, September the 10th, so yeah, feel free to watch this video that we've done earlier this week with everything to expect from the event. Then the pre-orders will start on Friday the 13th, followed by the shipment of the actual iPhones on Friday the 20th. And finally, when it comes to the prices, unfortunately we haven't had any leaks on those at all, so I would expect the prices to remain the same as in 2018 in the best case scenario. But do keep in mind that Apple might actually increase the prices because of that Pro naming scheme that they're adding. So that's quite unfortunate, but it might actually happen. And when it comes to the storage options, they will remain the same as in 2018. So 64 gigabytes, 256, and 512, which is a bit disappointing on the low end. 64 gigabytes is pretty low when compared to the S10, which comes with 128 or 256, yes, on the Note 10 Plus. Okay, so in the end, I gotta be honest with you. I'm quite disappointed in the 2019 iPhones. We're getting the exact same design for the 3rd year, just with a brand new camera feature, that wide-angle lens, which even that's not anything new. Many other smartphone manufacturers have had it since 2018 or even, earlier than that. So Apple is still playing catching up with the competition, and I'm quite sad to see the excitement of this year's new iPhone just go away, because it definitely went away in my case. But yeah, let me know in the comments, what do you guys think about the 2019 iPhones? Are you excited? Do you think the naming scheme is, bad? Obviously it's bad, but how bad do you think it is? Yeah, thank you for watching. Definitely subscribe and notifications if you have enjoyed this video. This was a really, really long one and took a really long time to make, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I didn't want to make multiple videos. I wanted to put everything in this one, so hope you guys enjoyed it and hope you guys made it until the end. Let me know in the comments also if you have made it until the end, but this has been pretty much it. So yeah, I'll see you next week. Obviously more videos until then, until the Apple event, but yeah, next week will be the actual event. So thank you for watching. I'm Daniel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. ZONEofTECH, signing out. Cheers.